In 2015, we started selling goodrs. In our first order from our manufacturer, we didn't think of packaging. So when we first started selling sunglasses, they shipped in a Ziploc bag. Our product was remarkable, but our packaging was not. So we learned and added packaging to our second order. Then we made change and change again. We knew it was right when 1 year later, people started commenting on how amazing our packaging actually was. It took us over a year and 4 iterations, but we finally made packaging that was remarkable. At goodr, we define remarkable as playing big and doing things worth talking about. At its core, being remarkable is hard because you're relying on someone else to remark on your work. The biggest trap to avoid is being inauthentic just to get attention. I call that being a troll. Instead, put in the time and effort to the type of work you would remark on because that's all you really can control. And if it's not received well, you pick yourself up and you try again because you can control that. Being remarkable is fun, it's hard, and it's somewhat out of your control. Let's talk about it.
Welcome to the Culture Goodr podcast with Stephen Leese and Shaun. This podcast is a behind the shades look at creating and changing culture inside of goodr sunglasses. You can live with the status quo, you can challenge the status quo, or you can do what we do at goodr and status the quo challenge.
Okay, well, so before we get into talking about remarkableness, let's kick things off with a lightning round, huh?
Let's do it.
All right. Scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at pickleball?
Oh, I'll probably get 5.
5. All right. That's decent, I would say. How many push-ups can you do?
Ooh, I mean, are we talking full push-ups?
Yeah, all the way down.
Maybe 50.
50?
Yeah.
Solid. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Strawberry, no question.
All right. And how did you end up with so many outfits that match our glasses?
Well, when you make thousands of different colorways, you tend to get some that match, and I have access to whichever ones I want.
Fair. Did any go from outfit to glasses?
No. But I do make custom ones. I pop lenses out of others to match frames to go with shirts.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What's something you find remarkable?
Oh, probably my partner, Sarah.
Solid answer across the board there. Nice. All right. So the funny thing about remarkableness is it's not up to us whether people remark about anything we do or not, right? So that's not really in our control. But when it comes to remarkableness, what do you think is in our control?
Yeah, right. I talked about in the intro, we define remarkableness as, playing big and doing work worth talking about. So I think first thing, like this idea of playing big is kind of in our control, right? How do you do things that are where you challenge the status quo? Because that tends to be noticeable, right? That tends to be remarkable.
Yep.
But I think the hard thing there is you actually just need to teach failure because to get people really to play big, they have to be okay failing first, I think. Yeah.
So teaching failure, meaning like embracing and accepting the fact that it's going to happen along the way, especially if you're trying big things.
Yeah, right. I mean, yes, because we all inherently, I think, just want to play safe. And how do you make it okay to take risks? Make it like goodr. I think we do a good job of creating a safe space for people to fail in. And when you do that, people tend to jump from higher and higher,
right?
And that creates remarkableness over time.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I think it cultivates a remarkableness within people, just the confidence to try big things because they know, I'm going to land on my feet here no matter what, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's really funny. You love gambling like I do.
Yes.
And it's really easy if you're, you always talk about a lot of times the time you had a big win.
Yeah.
And the reality is I'm never coming back and being like, oh man, I'm never really talking about all the losses I take.
Yeah.
And so I just become comfortable with playing roulette and I know losing is part of the deal.
Yep.
And so when you win, it's worth talking about. But at goodr, or the outside world, actually, I don't think sees how much we fail or how much stuff ever makes it to the surface.
Right.
And so it's kind of the same analogy. If you play enough, you're going to win.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was like, we do have the biggest flock up award, so we even find a way to celebrate that. But
yeah, with the Flamingo Awards, which is inspiring awe.
Yeah.
And we teach it to people. I mean, and we incentivize just the flat out weird here.
For sure. So we've ended up earning a lot of product and culture awards kind of along the way. Do you feel like that's something we set out to do or did it just happen?
We for sure did not set out to do it.
Yeah.
Now, right, when we started making product, we just wanted to make we saw a problem, right? Running sunglasses were ugly, expensive, and over-engineered. And so our solution and how we challenged the status quo was making them fashionable, affordable, and all performance without the extra bullshit. And so we wanted to challenge the status quo, and they for sure stood out, but winning a product award was not the goal. Now we obviously send press kits and we do more to try and incentivize that. But from the beginning, that wasn't the goal. It just was a side effect of trying to, stand out.
Right, for sure. I think along those lines, I've noticed that our press kits have gotten more and more remarkable, you might say, like really putting a lot of care and effort into making them something that's impressive. I wonder how that's impacted the way that things get received or processed on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, our first ever press kit was for the OG and made it, Carrie and I made it in downtown LA apartment. It was, bought this like cheap white box from Uline, bought foam from Michael's and cut it out and put everything in there ourselves. So we won Gear of the Year for the product, not necessarily for the press kit. And so now it's cool, but I'm not sure how much. It's for sure we probably get more unboxing videos, but I'm not sure how it affects the other side.
Yeah. I think it just speaks to like the way you kick this episode off, right? The way that something is packaged and presented is almost as important as the thing, but it's kind of creating an experience, right?
No, completely agree. I mean, imagine getting a pair of goodrs. Our packaging is really nice.
Yeah.
Imagine getting a pair of goodrs in a Ziploc bag. From the beginning, like, what the fuck is going on? It does ruin the experience. It's worth remarking about in the other way, in the bad way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to stay away from that if you can. Cool. So what's the question you get asked most often about goodr?
Unilaterally, it is about our product names, right? So for our listeners out there, I assume you know this, but all our colorways are named just wild things. Whiskey Shots of Satan, Nessie's Midnight Orgy. And it is the thing that is remarked about the most to me, whether it's a Q&A at a conference, a side conversation, somebody at an event. It is all in all the thing that people talk about the most about the brand.
I love that so much because of the origin story of that. Can you give us the background where that came from?
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. The first pair we ever got was Flamingos on a Booze Cruise. So pink, teal lenses. I always consider that that is like the pair of the brand. And put them on, and I looked at my partner Ben, and I go, these look amazing. You know what? These look like you're on a booze cruise with a flamingo. In fact, we're going to name these flamingos on a booze cruise, and we're going to name all of our colorways crazy names. He's like, sure, Steven, because he has to humor me.
Right.
And then that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we never looked back. We had the idea in 30 seconds and ran with it. And that's a really important thing. That idea cost us nothing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now it costs us a little bit of time to name the names, but I think sometimes we make this mistake that remarkable needs to be big, expensive, like audacious. It actually really does not. And the thing that people remark about the most is the names.
The thing that just kind of came to you in a flash and like ended up becoming a bit of a cornerstone of what we're doing.
Yeah. And then, we obviously we put a lot of time in the naming. So that is very real. And we had to have if I was to pump our own tires a little bit, we had to have the courage to be like, no, we're going to call these Whiskey Shots with Satan, and we're going to call these Swedish Meatball Hangover, right? It's a weird thing to stick with.
Yeah, for sure. So can you give a little behind the scenes on how we do that? How do we keep it up, coming up with all these crazy names?
Yeah, I mean, now we have an amazing team of copywriters. So every time we launch a new pair, we launch over 100 pairs a year. Basically, we have a deck that has all of them in there, and we're like, all right, well, this theme is going to be alien abduction. All right, so here's the 3 pairs. So we want the names to speak to alien abduction. And then anybody at the company can go in and make a comment. And then the copywriters, they put a bunch of time in. And basically once a week, there's just a naming meeting where I join them as often as I can, not all the time. I used to all the time. And we just read them. And usually there's 1 or 2 that are just clear winners.
Yeah.
And the room laughs and we just go with it.
The laughs have it.
Yeah, well, for example, we were naming a pair yesterday for this ice cream theme drop we're doing, and it's a Neapolitan colorway. And so, like, the second name that was read was Neapolitan Menage a Trois, right? And so, read it, everybody laughs. And then there's the third name, red, and the fourth name. I'm like, let's stop right there. We have a winner.
Yeah.
We have a winner here. So that's how it works.
Nice. Right on. Oh, well, clearly the glasses names are remarkable since you get asked about that so much. What else do you feel like we're doing to push ourselves in the remarkableness department here?
I mean, we do a lot of things, right? The product, every time I do a new model, we really make sure it speaks to the 4 Fs, which is, fun, fashionable, functional, affordable, and baked into that is doing something remarkable, and we will kill stuff if we have to. The content you see is super irreverent. It is, I think, impossible not to comment on it.
Right.
So I think that is. And then the culture, I mean, we get tons of companies reaching out to us, wanting to know more, a lot based off of this podcast. And so our 3 big strategic anchors are product, marketing, and culture, which is our people. And those are probably the areas we get the most remarks on.
I love it. Cool. So let's see here. People also ask how we come up with the glasses that we choose to launch. Can you give us a little bit of the behind the scenes on what we call Pitch-a-palooza?
Yeah,
Pitch-a-palooza. How does it work?
Yeah, it happens once a quarter, and it's a pitch festival, right? Get it, Pitch-a-palooza. And basically anybody at the company can pitch an idea for a product launch, and they put together, it's like a 3-minute pitch. And so recently we try and schedule it so it's the Tuesday of new hire week, which is amazing. So you're brand new to goodr and you come in and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So somebody will go up there and pitch. I think Jared pitched a whole like Oregon Trail theme drop, which right, people love, or Best Friends Day, which we did last year. That came from Pitch-a-palooza. I mean, a bunch of our drops have come. So people just go there and they just get to pitch their weird, wild, crazy ideas.
Yeah.
And then some of them get made into sunglasses and some of them don't. But anybody here can do it.
Yeah. We have like a museum of all the ideas that never made it, or that just...
Ooh, that's a Mike question. I mean, when you say a museum... you mean decks archived in our Google Drive?
Probably.
Then yes, we absolutely have that.
Okay, cool.
we could make a museum of that.
Yeah, I love that. I forgot that it's usually the first new hire Tuesdays with Carl that happens. And it's like already the things that we're doing for people's first week are pretty remarkable, but like piling that on top is just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how's this?
We come in so hot. They come into a tilt-a-whirl.
For sure. Oh my God. Well, there's another one coming in hot here. So excited for that.
Yeah.
So how did we invest in remarkableness early on in the early days of the company versus now?
Right. I mean, I alluded to it just a second ago with, we just ran with ideas because ideas are really cheap. Execution's everything. So the product names was one. I mean, Carl the Flamingo is another.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how Carl the Flamingo came about. Carl is our flamingo mascot. He's also my co-CEO.
Yep.
But when we first launched products for the first few years, every time we dropped a product, we wrote an origin story, like an elaborate, weird origin story where the name came from.
Yeah.
And so for the ones for Flamingos on a Booze Cruise, Ben wrote it, and he just cited in one line, we met the king of the flamingos, Carl. And I just thought it was so funny that his name was Carl. So flash forward a month or two later, we're getting ready to ship product for the first time and setting up the ship station in downtown LA apartment. And there is like a return address. It's address, company name, but then there's a thing for a person's name. And so I just typed in Carl the Flamingo because I thought it would be just fun and random.
Yeah.
And then people started being like, well, who's Carl the Flamingo? Our retailers would love it. We would start hearing about it, right? People would start talking about just getting packages from Carl the Flamingo.
Yeah.
And it took on a mind of its own. In 2018, we did a rebrand with the pink and teal colors you see today, and we started using a cartoon flamingo as our icon, and then it took on a life of its own where Carl has his own Instagram feed.
Yeah.
Right, but like that, from the beginning, it was things like that because we could afford that. And now we do other weird stuff. Like last year, as part of an awareness campaign, we went to Carl, Georgia. There's three Carls in the U.S. One's in Georgia, and so we bought every billboard in the town. It was like 10 billboards, and it was like, "Hi, Carl, meet Carl." And it's a town of like 200 people, the nicest people in the world. And we went there, like bought all the billboards, did this fun activation, and that is an example that obviously cost money, right? Billboards and travel.
Yeah.
But that's the juxtaposition of two different Carls 7 years apart from each other.
For sure. You've got one where I've seen Carl as a dog toy and a plush toy, and then you took over an entire town.
Yeah.
You do what you can at the size you're at. Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. So we also just opened our second cabana at Abbot Kinney in Venice. Aside from the giant, massive, functional pair of sunglasses on the roof, what else did we do to try to create a remarkable experience in the retail space?
Yeah, so this was the second version. It's our one and only store. So we had a little boutique that was our original office, and we closed it in summer of 2020. And simply, our lease was up in the middle of the pandemic, and so we used that opportunity to plot, because we wanted to do a store that was out of this world, that was, remarkable.
Yeah.
Abbot Kinney is one of the coolest streets in LA, according to myself and GQ magazine. And we targeted it during the pandemic because we believed we were going to be able to get it at a price we probably couldn't afford, or a price we actually could afford.
Right.
And working with this amazing company called Experiential, and this thing happened during the design process of like, hey, we want you to, the directive was like, we want you to go outside any type of normal store that you think. And the first iteration was this kind of a tropical eye doctor. And I was like, hey, here's the deal. I want us to follow this simple model of like attract, capture, engage. 10,000 people a day walked in Abbot Kinney. We are 400 feet away from a Ray-Ban store and a Warby Parker store. Yeah. And my directive was, I was like, I want them to be fucking embarrassed when they see our store. And then the second iteration of designs that Experiential knocked out of the park is what you see now, where there's a giant 14-foot pair of goodrs on the roof, Flamingos on a Booze Cruise. Yep. They're to scale. Yeah. And we created a full experience. We call it tropical surrealism. So when you walk in, it's this entire vibe. We force flow you through the store, just different fun moments around every corner. And we took a lot of time and energy to make that store what it is.
Yeah. And there's so many little things that, like, there's an infinity mirror, the kind of fish tank and the fireplace, like all these little things that are like, oh yeah, you know, I feel like I remarked on so much going through there. And I know as I watch people go through it, seeing them experience all those little points that were so well considered is really fulfilling.
For sure. And we try and, you know, always tweak it continuously.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite part about it right now?
I mean, the sunglasses on the roof are probably just my all-time favorite part. Yeah. We have some fun changes we're trying to make. So I'm focused on how we're going to, like, you know, make it even better next year. Yeah. I can never remember which came first, but there's this shirt that matches the wallpaper. Was it shirt or wallpaper? It was, we made custom wallpaper.
Yeah.
And then we made, the staff wears a shirt that looks like you're just camouflaged.
Yeah, exactly. It's just got a floating head. It's great. So was there anything scary about rolling out the new Cabana and like the approach there? Like, how do you head off that fear of doing just crazy stuff? Yeah, I mean, it is, you do get used to it, right? I mean, so the Cabana, for example, a year earlier, we closed our previous store in summer of 2020. We opened the new Cabana in summer of 2021, and we took a year and we planned it and we budgeted for it, because we didn't go into this needing to make this. We didn't need to make a ton of money on the Cabana to afford everybody's payroll. And so when the goal is to be remarkable first and profitable second, it kind of frees you to do that. I don't think that's a great business practice for a lot of things, but for this it was. We wanted the experience first. And so we made the goal being remarkable, not profitable. And what's wild is it's actually twice as profitable as we were expecting. Right. That's amazing. But yeah, I think the big thing there is you need to inherently understand what your goal is, number one, and then really you need to live in the discomfort of doing something that is different than everyone else. Yeah. Well, it feels like because profitability wasn't the primary goal, you could feel a lot more free to be like, yeah, let's try this, let's try that, because you're not just thinking, is this going to make more profit? Or you're thinking, is this going to make a remarkable experience? Yeah, right. I mean, one is the store has been received really well. So we also got, there was an element of luck there. But I mean, even taking a step back further,
I go into stores all the time. I go into stores on Abbott Kinney all the time. So I know what the standard is, and I know when something is quite a bit different and stands out.
Yeah.
And I think if you are just paying attention and your goal is to stand out, you can make that happen. It is actually really achievable to manufacture that to some degree.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to do something remarkable, I feel like you could get stuck in a trap of just trying to outdo yourself constantly. So how do we avoid that?
Oh, it's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, really, I think that, right, there's a consistency element. So I'll try and explain it, because I do think that's a really important trap to stay away from. Product. We have, when we made our second model, OG first, the BFG came second. We reverse engineered, like, well, what made the OG so special? And it was, we created the 4 Fs, right? It's fun, fashionable, functional, meaning it's made for an athlete, and it's affordable. And so we identified $25 or $35 price point. So that is our decision matrix and our brief for creating product. And so there's a lot of consistency. And so I believe most of our products are worth remarking about. We won Gear of the Year, I think 6 or 7 times for different models. And so consistency is really important, because we conceptually understand what our fans are going to like. So I think that's one thing, is like I know, trying to be consistent over trying to outdo yourself. Also, there is a time and a place for going crazy. Like a new model, we've trashed 2 or 3 new models way down the line after we cut a mold because they weren't right. So a new model, I believe you should be on that. Hey, if a photo shoot is not great, there's just going to be another one. And so you do have to pick and choose your battles, because it's too exhausting to try and outdo everything all the time. Yeah, for sure. So you figure out where it's kind of safe to experiment and versus where you need to kind of play it safe. Yeah, right. You limit your downside. Yeah. Like launching a new model that sucks, that is a disaster. Yeah. A one-off social media post that isn't out of this world, whatever, it's transient, it goes in the wash. Right. Yeah. Fair. So I know you just gave a talk to retailers recently. One of the points you made was why fit in when it's so much easier to stand out. And I think probably to a lot of people that didn't seem so obvious, but it seems very clear to you. What do you think that is? Yeah, I mean, why would you want to be average? There's so much competition there. Yeah. Right. I mean, right. If you are in the average zone, you are going to have to fight for every little bit. So if you stand out, it becomes a lot easier, in my opinion. So I think that's one really big thing. Also, if you're a consumer goods product like we are, a lot of competition. So what's going to get somebody to notice what you're doing versus what everybody else is doing? Right. I mean, there's a simple like practicality to it. I also, I on my day-to-day enjoy standing out. Yeah. And so, right. So I guess I have to have a company there where that happens. For sure. Yeah. I do. Yeah. So I don't know. It is I think it's really important from a business standpoint. And I'll be very clear. goodr, right? We'll take the Cabana, because during this talk, right? We have a giant pair of sunglasses that are on our roof, right? That is a way we stand out to anybody who walks by. 65% of our customers at Cabana are new to the brand. Have never heard of us before. Yeah. So on that same street, there's Salt and Straw. They're an amazing ice cream shop that always has a line waiting outside. They don't have a giant ice cream cone on the roof. They just make amazing flavors day in and day out, right? So that's how they stand out. And so I think it's really important to understand you can stand out in so many different ways. It is not, there's not one way to do it. For sure. I think maybe on the other side, they like the comfort of fitting in. It feels safe because if you're looking around at other companies like you and going, well, what are they doing? All right, our stuff's close to that. Like we're competing, right? Yeah. But it's missing that point. It's like, well, you're not competing so much as you are just blending in, getting overlooked. I agree. I mean, we don't really talk about competition a lot inside the building here. And I don't really ever look at what our competitors are doing because it's quite irrelevant. Yeah. Quite frankly, some of them are doing really cool stuff. Yeah. I'm focused on what we're doing versus trying to fit in with what everybody else is doing. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned like scrapping projects occasionally. How often would you say that we scrap something and start over because it's not headed in that remarkable direction? Ooh, I mean, all the time. Who knows really how to quantify that? I know for sure I have the talk that you just alluded to, the Future Source talk that I gave. I probably spent 40 or 50 hours on the first version, and I fucking hated it, and so I threw it in the garbage and started over.
Yep.
And so that'll happen quite often, and I think that's also an okay thing, right? Pitchapalooza, a bunch of those pitches never see the light of day.
Yeah.
It's quite regular that work does not see the light of day, and that is actually another really important lesson with doing consistently great work. Is you have to be okay with trashing bad work and not getting married to the sunk cost fallacy. Well, I spent 40 hours on it. Like, who cares? It sucks. Move along.
Right, for sure. And recognizing that effort was a part of the path towards something great, right? It got you halfway there, maybe.
No, I mean, that's actually a really good point. That is going to make the next iteration better. And so you didn't trash it. You learned from it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So last thing as we kind of wrap up here, can you talk about how we encourage and celebrate remarkableness at goodr?
Well, it is a pillar to authenticity. Yep. So that's one way, and we talk about it regularly, and really we do. It's this idea of playing big, but so that's one thing. Also, all of the projects we do, there is a line item for your purpose. What's this project's purpose? Rules we play by, and then what's wild success. And wild success should be out of this world type of thinking. And I think that's just one small little thing that on the daily, when you're firing up a new project, you're thinking about like, well, what would be wild? Yeah. And so I think that's the one thing we do. We make a safe space for people to fail. Yeah, I mean, what do you think we do?
So much. As you were saying that, I was thinking, having the exercise of just expanding your mind a little bit to what wild success could even be is something that I don't think I've come across anywhere else. It's just like, what's the brief? Like, how do we get this done? Yeah. Versus like, okay, this is what done looks like, but what does like amazing done look like? I think just having that practice built in is great. And like so many of the things that we do here, putting our attention on something like that is what creates the possibility for it to occur with a little higher probability than if we weren't even thinking about it at all, right? Yeah, for sure. I also, it's impossible. I had a mentor once tell me, it's impossible to predict magic. The goal is to try to create the conditions for magic to happen. Right. And I think we just try and create those conditions for remarkableness, and it happens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay too. Yeah, for sure. And when it does happen, since we just wrapped up AMP, this is top of mind for me. We have people celebrate the wins on their team, nominating people for our Flamingo Awards. And then at the end of the year, big gala, everybody suits up and we give out the awards just like Grammys or Oscars. For sure. Right? I think the highest status here is winning a Flamingo Award. The brief is you need to inspire awe. Yeah. You have to be nominated. We give out 25-ish a year. And so, you figure out the size of the company, it's in every quarter. So out of, what's that math? Out of 500 opportunities, 25 happen. So it's really prestigious, and it is quite incredible. Anybody who has gotten one, I would think unilaterally agrees it's something we're talking about. Totally. Looking forward to this next one for sure. All right. So head up to Circle Bar. What's one thing you want to answer again or didn't get to bring up? I'll just beat into the ground that you can't fall down the trap of trying to be remarkable all the time. I mean, really, if you were to start doing this, and this will get this getting into like next actions or advice, it is actually creating a safe space for people to fail, right? Making that okay. Like trying to get people like 1% better every day, and then you will eventually rise to that occasion. But it is even like the names that came up with early on, that was from 12 years of previous work experience of me starting companies. That didn't just happen one day. Yeah. And so I just think that is a thing. It is a practice. You need to start small and really just create the conditions for a safe space, and then don't be surprised when amazing things happen. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to go to goodr.com/culture for episode extras and to subscribe. And until next time, be excellent to each other.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Goodr podcast. To submit questions for the podcast, learn more about our culture, and learn how you can status the quote challenge, head over to goodr.com/culture. And don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're listening, including on YouTube, where you can now watch all of our new episodes. Who knows? You might even catch a glimpse of Carl at our headquarters if he's not already passed out at the tiki bar from all the margaritas.